Hello. I have returned. Hold on, chat. Am I here? Am I live? So this is so weird, man. Oh my god, dude. Like, it's like the universe... I swear to God. Sometimes the internet tries to keep me from sharing certain ideas. Like, this is weird, right? It's like the toxic manosphere, like, unplugged my internet. It's wild, dude. It's really wild. I don't know what to make of it. Okay, hold on. So I got to set this back up. Oh, nice. Man, sometimes I love Firefox when it remembers which windows were open. Okay. So what I was saying, I don't know if you guys caught that. Hey, you want to join us?
Yeah, I think it's time.
Okay. That's cool. Let me, I gotta do some stuff then, though. Hold on. We're gonna need a couple chairs. All right, so Kruti's joining us. I was just about to talk about the real reason men cheat, but I guess we can't talk about that anymore. Give me a second. Hi.
What's the real reason?
I was just pointing out, so you know, there was this post I was reacting to where people were talking about, like, or the person was saying, like, oh, like, no, we're going to need the right chairs. Give me a second. Anyway, will you talk?
All right.
And then I will help you get set up. So why don't you just go ahead and I'm really curious.
Oh,
we'll have some.
What was that?
Yes. So you can sit here,
Okay.
and then I'm going to try to set us up for, you know,
Have you
two of us.
already talked about this one?
Nope, I haven't. So here's what I'm going to show you how to do this.
Okay.
So you can react to this, and then you can click this tab and react to this one.
Wait. Just give me one thing.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay. I will be right back, chat. And y'all can be left in suspense for why men cheat.
No, but where is chat?
Chat is here.
I want chat. Chat's my favorite.
Hey, Kabir, what's up? Oh, am I on the wrong overlay? Yeah, so there we go. I think that should work. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. And
Hi,
then
Kabir.
we're here. And then we're here. Okay.
But where's...
Chat is here. That's my face.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to worry about my face.
There they are.
Yeah. So you can see them over here.
Okay.
And then...
Chat's my fave.
do you know how to switch scenes?
I don't know anything. I'm here for my brain.
Okay.
For this stuff, not for that side.
Okay, that's fine. So, okay, so why don't you read this and then I'll be back in a minute. And you can react to it. And they can see it too.
Okay, cool. How are you guys doing? I heard Olive saying some stuff and I was like, uh-oh. I don't know where this honeymoon stuff is going. So it's good to kind of be with you guys again. Why do men cheat? I feel like it's either because they can, or they're bored, or the consequences of cheating don't matter that much. So the person they're cheating on, they obviously don't care about them that much. If they do, then it's like too much in the past or too much of a back note. I don't know. I feel like I know why women cheat. All right, so
yeah, so tell them about that.
Why women cheat? I don't think people cheat because they're bad people. I think sometimes people I think it's very easy to say like, oh, this person cheated and therefore they are unequivocally a horrible person. I think the people that I know that have been in those situations are good people. But they just weren't getting what they needed in their relationships. Kind of plain and simple. And the people that they cheat with, it's not like they cheated with this person because they had so much to offer. It's they were unhappy in their relationship. And that kind of made them vulnerable. And then who they cheated with matters less than, I think, the relationship with the person that they're cheating on. Okay. Do you want me to read this or you want me to wait for you to read this?
No, you can read it.
All right.
I have questions for you
Okay.
because I'm so curious.
Okay.
Can I ask you to get up for a second?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to move this here. Excuse me.
Yep.
Move over here. This here.
Can I help you?
Nope. Got it. So why don't you have a seat?
Okay.
We're gonna do this. Testing. Go ahead and talk. We gotta switch mics, chat. We'll fix this one day.
I'll count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, you're gonna
9,
have to.
10.
You're gonna have to talk louder. Just like last time.
Let's sit right next
So-
to each other and talk as loud as we can, right
Yeah.
in each other's faces. That's
You're-
why people cheat.
Pretend like you're talking to chat, not talking to.
Hi, chat.
Wait, so why were you saying women cheat?
Like a 1990s phone call.
Why were you saying women cheat?
I think women cheat. I think generally women cheating is more about the relationship they're in than about who they're cheating with. I don't think they're cheating like, oh, that guy is so hot or that guy is so this or that. It's more like there's some need that isn't being met. The relationship itself is, for whatever reason, not the first thing and the priority that they're thinking about. So
Do you think men cheat for different reasons?
I don't know why men cheat. I think the men I know that have, I think all really regret it. I feel like for them it might almost be, I think the weighting is a little bit different on the integrity of their relationship versus the person that they have an opportunity to cheat with. I think the person that they are cheating with weighs more for men than it does for women.
Wait, what?
Like, okay, if a man and a woman are both like are equally unhappy in their relationship
Uh-huh.
and they see an equally like hot or attractive other person that's offering them whatever it is that they're looking for, I think for women this matters less than it does for men. I think for women the state of the relationship matters more.
I see.
And for men, the who it is that they're cheating with matters more. But I don't really know much about male cheating.
Okay. If you guys want to, we can talk about, I think let's go over a couple things together and then we can talk about male cheating at the end.
Okay.
So thanks for the raid. Setter MD. Welcome everybody. So we are going to look at, do you want to look at this? Like this, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So you've banged her. That doesn't mean things have changed. This is a mistake I've seen countless times. Guy seduce girl. They make sweet love. Guy thinks he's now in and stop gaming her. Guy is surprised when she tells him, I don't love you anymore. AKA, I'm banging, going to bang somebody else. I often feel that there's more need of detailed posts about what's called relationship management. The scene is way too focused about the initial stages of the game, but it's the development what's really important. If you fall, lose control for a girl, you're going to get hurt really bad. Especially if you've been playing the asshole game in the first stage. She is going to get revenge on you for that, no mercy. So here's my small bag of tips.
I think this is going to be super long if you read all of it.
Yeah. You have to be in control. Remember, she's disposable. Keep gaming other girls. Wow.
What do you think about this?
Be always ready to lose her. I think this person is not going to get very far.
Why not?
This seems much more about what this person is going through than anything that's generally applicable.
Why do you say that?
This looks like an AI summary of like every toxic like player boy on the internet. This looks like no original thought or insight.
I mean, even if it's an amalgamation of AI scrapings, but what is wrong about this way of thinking, or what if you think it's wrong?
I guess I'm not clear what this person wants. Like, what does success look like for this person?
Let's see if we can find an answer to that. So, let's see.
Like, is success a woman who's in love with him? Because that's what it starts off as, but then why do you want somebody to be in love with you if, in your opinion, she's disposable? Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know what this person is doing.
Yes.
I didn't read the whole thing. I'm just reading the headline.
Yeah, so I'm kind of reading through it. So I think like, you know, there needs to be more detailed posts about relationship management. So what I would read into this is that this person has seen and or has experienced that they can have a sexual relationship with someone, and then eventually the woman will say, I don't love you anymore.
I mean, yeah, if you're like playing a game and putting on a front to get a girl into bed, and then you like bait and switch and you're somebody else, and then that girl is like, oh, you're not who I thought you were. Yeah, it's not going to work.
So I think there's a lot of like interesting stuff that you mentioned. One is that it's not, I think a lot of times in the scene, as this person puts it, there isn't a lot of clear idea about like what people are looking for.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's like kind of scary, like as a psychiatrist, is, see, y'all got to be careful. This is something really, really, really important to understand. When someone tells you something and you do this in your head, that's like super dangerous territory, right? If someone says, I don't love you anymore, and you're like, okay, now you're interested in banging other people, like that is the problem, is that when someone is trying to communicate something to you, you are not hearing what they are saying, and instead you are interpreting it in your own way. So like that, I think, explains why the person sees a lot of struggle and or has struggled themselves and like moving relationships to another level, because early on you have like this kind of honeymoon phase of love, and then later on, to sustain love in a relationship, it's not about banging other guys or wanting to bang other guys. It's about like the relationship has to evolve.
I feel like what this person is saying is like, you've got to keep up the facade almost.
Yeah. I mean, like
even after you hook up, you still have to kind of keep playing the game that you were playing when y'all first got together. But I mean, if that's all this person is wanting to do, sure. But if this person is wanting a relationship, then
yeah. So I think like if you look at this, right, remember she's disposable, keep gaming other girls in front of her and always be ready to lose her. I'm not surprised that if you do these things, I'm so confused, because does this mean that if you do these things, then they keep telling him that they love him? anyway, so I mean, we can't do some back and forth, and that's a problem of, the way that we're approaching this. But I think this is going to cause people, unless they are traumatized and have some like psychological stuff going on, this is going to cause people who are interested in long-term relationships to leave you. So I'm confused by that, but that's like, right. And I want y'all to just, I think
it feels like a very unhealthy tension of like, once you give into one thing, then she's going to keep wanting you to give in. And I think he's just missing, I'm assuming this is a man, I think they're missing like a very basic point of like, she only wants more because she wants more from you. And if you don't want to give her more, then why are you, on the one hand, acting like you do want to give her more, but on the other hand, like, no, you will always be disposable. It just feels like very self-defeating.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's self-defeating, and I think it's self-protecting.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you have difficulty gaining emotional intimacy or managing the long-term relationship, one of the best ways to protect yourself from being hurt, and I think that's what this person kind of advocates for, right, is like, keep them disposable. So also reeks a lot of avoidant attachment, where like, you can't hurt me if I don't let you. And one of the ways I can keep you from hurting me is by keeping you at arm's distance.
I think from a girl's point of view, if you're with a guy like this, you're like, okay, that's it. I've had enough. And so it almost feels from the girl is always threatening to break up or never see you again. But that's because the guy is doing all this other stuff. So now the girl is like, oh, she's so manipulative. She keeps saying she's going to leave me, but it's like he's basically encouraging her to leave him. I don't know. It's very self-fulfilling, I think.
Yeah, I see that problem a fair amount.
Yeah.
Okay. So here is a Tinder profile checklist. Neither of us know anything about Tinder, I'm assuming. Right?
No comment.
So, okay. Have at least 5 photos. Photos are clear. Photos are high quality. None of the photos are selfies. Oh, interesting. None of the photos contain a mirror reflection of me. Okay. None of the photos are memes. All photos contain me. There are no bulky clothes. The majority of photos do not have sunglasses or other items covering the face. No captive exotic animals in my photos.
There we go.
No guns, other weapons, unless you're throwing an axe or shooting an arrow. Okay,
Those are the acceptable weapons.
Archery and axe throwing. Okay. Have at least one photo of me participating in a hobby or activity that I love. Have some photos in natural settings of light. Posture is good. Any shirtless photos of me are in the beach or activity content. Photos give a good taste of who I am. Group photos are clear, high quality. None of the photos are bro photos, hanging out with the boys. Photos show me in the exact middle of the group. Oh, that's interesting. Do not show me leaning my neck or my body posture towards someone else. Yeah, isn't there something about like the V line or something that makes it weak?
It's like this.
Yeah.
But why am I taller than you right now?
Because you're taller than me all the time.
That is not true.
I think it's because you're sitting on your butt and I'm sitting on my butt, and that gives one of us height advantage. Have at least one photo of me with a dog or cat. Have at least one photo that shows social proof. Bio basics. Bio does not repeat or explain what is already revealed in photos. Bio is longer than a few words. Not negative in any way. Not longer than 2 paragraphs. Not longer than 3 lines at most. Wait, what?
This is created by an AI. Like, this is, I don't know.
Bio does not contain usernames to Instagram or other apps.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Sure. No weapons except for arrows. Arrows only. You should be shooting an arrow in the middle of a group, not leaning any which way, shirtless on the beach. I think that's your dream photo. that's what's going to get you the ladies.
Yeah, I mean, I think this sounds pretty good. I'm not too familiar with Tinder. But I think it's like, I think a lot of times, people, it's such an important part of dating nowadays. not necessarily Tinder, but just your online profile. I think there's a lot of goods. I think about all of the bad profiles that I've seen, and they usually violate some of these criteria.
Honestly, I don't think the bios matter at all. It's all about the photo, and I think 1 or 2 great photos is so much better than 5 average photos. All anybody really wants is to be like, who is this person? So, yeah, it should be you on your best day, I think. Doing something that you love, looking good, and like just genuine.
I think bio is important.
Well, lucky me.
Okay. What do y'all think, chat? Does that sound pretty reasonable to y'all? Helmets are no good either. Yeah, I think that makes sense. What if I don't have best days? Spoken like someone truly is a member of the HG community. I mean, I think you have best days, but I think sometimes they're few and far between, which is like super challenging. Okay. So 10 lessons after approaching 3,000 girls. You want to take this one away?
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I got a shot in my head on my little alopecia, and my head is like throbbing.
Do you want to go lay down or something?
No, but if I get a little whiny, that's what's happening.
Okay.
Do you want to feel my head band-aid?
Do you want me to feel your head band-aid? Okay. Oh, that feels very uncomfortable.
Yeah. No, it's here.
No, I feel it.
Okay, that's good. That's enough feeling of the head band-aid.
You know, in all of my years of the practice of medicine, I've never put a band-aid on a head.
I don't think this doctor has either. It took a while.
I can't think of that. I mean, usually well, I have put a band-aid on a head. I take that back. But every time where I put a band-aid or a bandage on a head, the head has been shaved.
Well, it's bald there. That's why I got the shot.
Okay. Well, there you have it.
Oh.
Shall we continue?
Yeah, but can I see chat?
Yes.
Okay. Whew. All right. Oh my God. 10 lessons after approaching 3,000 plus girls. 1. You will always overthink. Act before the thoughts rot your mind. Let her know you exist. Don't reject yourself before she knows you're a person. Make yourself known. Be in the moment rather than in your mind. Let yourself out rather than the script you remembered. Eye contact is everything. Smile through your eyes and don't be the first one to look away. Okay. Don't flirt. Can't stress this one enough. Most guys try to flirt with a stranger and it's cringe because you give her so much validation. Just because she's pretty doesn't mean she's girlfriend material. Qualify her and see if she passes the vibe check to hang out further another time. AKA simping. It's their fairy tale to be approached rather than to be matched on a dating app. Do the manly thing and approach. You'll feel like a boss, she'll feel feminine, chemistry galore. It's a numbers game. Approach 3 times a day. Keep it simple. 3 times a day times 365 days a year equals 1,095 approaches. Over that time, you'll become an expert. Outwork your overthinking. Literally approach the first 3 girls you see by themselves every day. Trust me, from someone who's approached anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 girls in my time, this is the best way. Flood your brain with so much action that it has no time for anxiety to exist because you're constantly taking action. Everyone is scared of approaching first. Be different. Inspire your friends with your massive actions. The status you'll gain will be immeasurable and the feeling is intoxicating. Chill and smooth is better than extrovert and quirky. Don't be annoying, cringy dickhead repeating the things you see YouTubers do. In real life, instead
repeat the things that Redditors do.
Instead, go straight eye contact, don't think, just stare at her. Yikes. In real life, she'll think you're weird. She just wants a normal guy, not the center of attention everywhere he goes. Take massive action now. While you're still single so you don't regret it when you're older and married and want to cheat on your wife because you didn't take action when you're single and had the chance. You got this, boys.
Cool. I like this. So, inspire others. Status you gain will be immeasurable and the feeling is intoxicating. But She just wants a normal guy, not the center of attention everywhere he goes.
How old is this person?
I don't know. So what do you think of this?
See, my reaction to this is so like visceral that it's gonna sound very discouraging to, it's gonna be like, don't do this. And then people are gonna be like, well, now how do you even win with women? But I really, like, from a woman's point of view, reading that of like, this person is gonna, I'm the third approach of the day. He's gonna stare at me. He's gonna make eye contact and not back down, but he's not gonna flirt with me. It's just like, what, who is this person? What do they want? They're not thinking, they're just taking massive action. Like, what is this? I wouldn't know what to say to this person. I wouldn't know how to react to this person. Like, they're not flirting, but they're making eye contact and not breaking it. Like, what is this? It would freak me out.
No, it wouldn't. If done properly, I think you would like it.
Do it.
I've done it.
When?
I think our first interaction, you remember when we were both at camp? And I was like, oh, so you're here. I made eye contact. I smiled. I did not flirt.
That was totally flirting.
I made you know that I was there.
I knew you were there. I mean, I have eyes.
I know, but I made myself known by making eye contact with you and saying, oh, you're here.
Congratulations. You made yourself known. No, that is not what that was. That is not even like the thing that I...
The only thing that you're missing is that I did it to 3 other people before I said it.
Yeah, it's your third approach of the day. Lucky me. And you read my bio. Very nice.
I mean, so yeah, no, I gotta say, I think there's some stuff here that's good and some stuff here that's bad.
The only thing I agree with is, and women would much rather be approached, I think, in person than have to be on a dating app. Like, there's something safe about an app where it's like, oh, I don't want to even meet this person until I feel good about it. But someone you run into in real life, even if they're staring at you and saying, oh, so you're here, is better, I think.
I was just surprised
chance of chemistry
that
is higher.
You were there. That's all.
Why? I go every year.
No. I
was surprised you were there. You were supposed to be a monk.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you knew that at the time. Anyway. So I think a couple of things. So I think there's a lot of good stuff here, and I think there's some problematic stuff.
I think it's quite contradictory.
I think, yes. I mean, this I think is contradictory. So I think there are a couple of things about this approach. So I think this is good, right? So be noticeable. Be in the moment. Don't overthink. I think that's good. I think eye contact is good too. I don't think you have to stare.
The don't be the first one to look away thing is weird.
Yeah. I think those kinds of rules you have to be careful about. Agreed. Don't flirt. I also kind of agree with this one, where you call that flirting, but I don't. I mean, I think other people, if they saw it, would call it flirting too, because I think flirting is in the energy. But I think like don't hit on her is good advice. So I think engaging, like flirtation is all, it's not about what's overtly said, it's about what isn't said. I don't think I was hitting on you.
But there's a difference between hitting on you and flirting with somebody. If you're not going to flirt, then what are we doing?
So I think flirtation's good.
Yeah, flirt.
So I do think there are a couple of other good things to keep in mind. I think all these approaches, I have like a mixed... I think there's like good and bad. So the one thing that I don't really like about it is like you're assuming, so I think you're using these approaches without any thought of what the experience is like for the other person. So one thing that I hear is very frustrating for women is like, I can't go anywhere without someone harassing me. Right? So like if a girl is like working out at a gym, don't approach. If they're like by themselves, generally speaking, just think about what impact this will have. If someone's like buying groceries, like you don't have to go and make eye contact with them and then don't look away first,
So I think just remember that there are other human beings on the other side of this equation, number one. Second thing is that I do think that one of the things I like a lot about the pickup artist community is that they emphasize practice. So they emphasize, if you look at something that we're very anxiety prone towards, one of the ways that our anxiety calms down is if we have lots of neutral stimuli. So anytime you're doing something that's anxiety provoking, what happens is your brain thinks, oh, this is dangerous because in the past it didn't go well, you got rejected, etc. So how can you calm down that anxiety? If you do it like once a year and you fumble over your words and you like are super anxious and you're in your head and it's a mess, then that will reinforce the anxiety. Whereas if you have more and more neutral stimuli, then the anxiety will go down. You'll get more used to it. You'll become more comfortable. You'll become more confident. So one thing I like is that they emphasize practice. And this is basically what we do in exposure therapy, right? So when someone is anxious around snakes or elevators or whatever, we're going to do lots of like slow graded practice to decrease that anxiety. That I think is
who
very
are
good.
you practicing on? Like, if you're just practicing on people, then like I feel like you're missing the opportunity. Like you're not. It's like you're practicing, but you're never going to actually do it if the potential people that would actually click with you are just part of your experiment.
Yeah, so I think, that's what I think is sort of good in a lot of ways and kind of bad about this, because what I like about this is there's a shift to the self instead of the other.
Can I just
Yeah.
copy paste over like anything that's actually good somewhere?
Yes, you can do that. You can copy paste anything that is actually good somewhere. Oh, cool. This got recovered.
Okay.
Now I have a Word doc that is called The Art of the Neg. So you can copy pasta this over here.
Okay. I'll do that while you talk.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that there's a lot of good stuff here because it's like it's focusing on you, which I think is really healthy about the pickup artist community. I think a lot of times, they're like, this is a post that's talking about your emotions. It's talking about not overthinking. It's talking about developing confidence. There isn't a whole lot of stuff in here about, oh, women are this way and all women want this and AKA this. And so I think this is like better advice. And this is what I mean when I say I'm seeing a lot of healthy stuff in these communities. Where I think people are growing. I think people are being more respectful. Like literally the only thing that I think is, like, you gotta just be careful because there's another human. So if you're like approaching 3,000 to 5,000 girls in your time, like, I don't know if those people would appreciate that. So just don't be, think about the other person. I think another thing, take massive action now while you're still single so you don't regret it when you're older and married and want to cheat on your wife because you didn't take action when you were single and had the choice. So we'll talk about why men cheat in a hot second here, but I think that it's I have not seen a very good correlation between number of sexual partners before marriage and the likelihood to cheat. So I think there's this idea that, you should sow your wild oats and things like that. There may be some validity to that. But I think generally speaking, if we look at why people cheat, it's oftentimes due to problems within the relationship. Like if you're unhappy in your relationship, then you're more likely to cheat. Can I see this for a second?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk to chat. Can you minimize this? Click this.
Can I just do this?
No, you can't do that. Just that. There you go. Because there's two chats, so you can go back to what you're doing.
Okay. What did you want to see here?
Just because you're doing this, so I would interact with chat while you're doing that. I see that this person is a big fan of Dr. J. Thank you.
My main thing that I agree with on all of this is the idea of not overthinking and like be in the moment. Like, don't get analysis paralysis. I would rather somebody just kind of do whatever, even if it's not perfect, than overthink it and kind of miss their chance. Somebody said like shy people like to be approached, and I think that is true. And also I think societally most people are much shyer in real life than they are like online. So I don't know, all of this like is very like loud and vocal and like not shy, but in real life people are shy. So some of this advice I think is like louder and more exaggerated than it needs to be applied in real life.
Yeah, you know, we see something really interesting in group coaching. So oftentimes people will have difficulty speaking up in a group setting. So one of the techniques that I found is very helpful is when there's someone who's quiet in a group coaching setting, we'll ask them, hey, are you okay with being asked questions? So like, I understand that you're quiet and you don't know how to jump in. Are you like trying to stay out of the conversation, or would you be okay with people asking you and bringing you in? And I would say 90 to 95% of people will say, I'm okay being a part of the conversation. I just don't know how to jump in. And hopefully over the time of what we see this quite consistently is over the course of group coaching, that changes, right? So at the very beginning, other people bring them in and then they learn how to take space in the conversation when they need to. And I think the same is true of like dating stuff where people can be shy and sometimes it's okay if someone's shy, like, you know, you can give it a shot. Right? So people are saying,
Can I just say,
yeah,
don't take advice from people who don't want the same thing as you.
I was going for this.
And that is how you win over women.
Okay. Let's take a look at this.
No, but don't take advice from people who don't want the same thing as you. So if what you want is like multiple, countless hookups, fine. Then this advice maybe makes more sense. But if what you're looking for is a committed relationship, I would not take advice here.
Okay, you want to read this one?
You always make me read the long ones. Here's everything I've learned about women dating, sex.
Okay, here's this one.
Yeah.
Okay, that one's pretty long, but look at this. I did this one. This is why I told you. I was like, you should join maybe a little bit later because this is kind of a mess. I mean, it's good. It's a good post. But,
okay, all right.
Okay.
Here's everything I've learned about women, dating, sex, pickup artists, and seduction in my decades of life. I understand now why you burp so much. Quick bio. I'm 41, Alcoholics Anonymous male.
I think that means
Asian
African.
American.
I think usually African American,
African-American?
but it could be Asian American.
Okay. Athletic build, 6 feet, 200 pounds, slightly above average in the manhood department. My best features are my eyes and my voice. Think Allstate man. I lost my V card on my 50th birthday, and in the 26 years that have followed, I've had countless approaches. Okay, this is just like a personal nitpick. I hate it when people say countless and then they put a number. And that tells me literally everything I need to know about this person. Slept with over 200 women, have had about a half dozen LTRs, and I'm now engaged to a wonderful woman, and we frequently enjoy the swinger lifestyle together. Confirmed. Here's everything I've learned from being the best version of yourself, the simplest approaches, building attraction, securing a date, and avoiding flakes, my 3-date rule, sex that will have her begging for more, and transitioning into an LTR. Enjoy. Part 1. The best you. The biggest hurdle you'll face in your seduction journey is trying to convince someone to invest in a product. That you don't believe in. Take some time and focus on you. Go to the gym, develop your style, work on building a life and lifestyle that you're happy with and proud of. It makes it so much easier to interact with women, people, when you have an awesome life backing you up. Yes, you should do this anyway. A few quick style tips. It doesn't matter how you dress or what your style is, your clothes should always follow 3 simple rules: clean, neat, fit. And remember, style is fluid, not stagnant. Sure, shorts and a t-shirt are comfortable, but slacks and a button-down are stylish. Change it up and dress for the occasion. You don't need a shit ton of money, the body of a Greek god, or the face of a cover model. All you need is a positive attitude, confidence, and a little bit of fuck it to be successful with women. Discover your best features and use them to your advantage. I'm constantly complimented on my voice, so I train myself to speak in a tone pace that makes people focus and pay attention. Once I have their attention, the rest is cake. Whatever your best feature is, learn to utilize and market it to your advantage.
So I was just going to say, this could be long if you read it all,
Yeah.
but, I mean, go for it if that's what you want to do.
What do you... Oh,
Actually, so it looks like it's kind of shorter, but I can take over. So
okay. Yeah, you do.
part 2 approaches smile. There is no golden opening or pickup line. Approach is the goal. No is always the answer to a question unasked. Always be escalating. I don't know exactly what this means. Make her want to. Your job is not to try to convince her to persuade her to do anything with you. Your job is to make her want to give you her contact info, want to go out with you, want to kiss you, want to touch you, want to have sex with you, want to be with you. And when a woman wants, it's easier give. Most importantly, always remember that you are inviting her to be a part of your world, not asking for a place in hers. Women come and go. You are the only constant in your life, so invite her to be a part of it and not the other way around. So let's just stop. So you commented, what do you think? This is pretty good, right? Part 1?
Yeah, part 1 isn't bad.
What do you think about part 2?
My favorite thing about part 1, though, is a little bit of fuck it. I think this is really important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Part 2, what do I think about part 2? I feel like people go... One of the biggest fallout points in early relationships is not knowing who wants what. Like, I think he likes me, but I don't know, and I think she's into it, but I don't know. So I agree with the make her want to. I think that's a big point of conflict. It's like, well, do you even want it? I don't want you to do this. I want you to want to do this. Like, that's language is used a lot. Like, I want you to want to. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I think this is overall like really good advice. So smiling, I think, is really important. I think this is really smart. So this is going to be a little bit of a aside. So when people talk about things like technique and golden openers and perfect pickup lines and stuff, I think if you look at just research on outcomes, so it kind of doesn't matter what kind of outcomes research you're looking at. So you can look at like medical outcomes, you can look at like work, like career coaching outcomes, whatever. I think what is in your head in the process is way more important than like what what one particular thing is. So I think you can even look at like business cases, right? Where you can look at a company like Apple and I'm sure you have thoughts on this more, so you're more educated on this than I am. But like, I think what makes Apple successful is not that they made one really great product. They have a way of approaching product development that allows them to create multiple things that are very successful. Oftentimes what I see...
How did we get to Apple?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
So I think oftentimes what I see in the pickup artist thing is they try to duplicate a particular, they're like, this is the golden pickup line, this is the perfect pickup line, this is what you should do. Whereas I like what this person is doing because they're focusing on like a process-oriented approach. So if you're authentic, if you're genuine, it's funny, right? Because we were joking about, the truth is that it doesn't matter what you say, it's how you say it that makes the difference. And we were joking about...
Just put your hand right here on my Band-Aid, it hurts.
Okay, why don't we wrap things up in a bit?
No.
Okay. So I think even when we were joking about our first interaction, it was like also like, hey, I just said, so you're here and that's it. But I think a tone and stuff matters a lot. The authenticity of it matters a lot. I was super happy to see her. I wasn't expecting to see her, and I was like, oh, this is great. And so I think that's really good. So I think they focus a lot on process. So approach is the goal. I think that's a theme we're seeing, which is really good as long as you consider the perspective of the other person and don't be weird. And then I think another really good aspect here is make her want to instead of trying to persuade or convince. That I think is phenomenal advice. So when we do stuff like career coaching and things like that as well, and even when I'm talking to, like when I'm mentoring people who are applying to medical school or residency, I think it's awesome to focus on what you're good at and really showcase what you offer as opposed to try to convince this person to pick you. And I think that's really good. And inviting someone to be a part of your world instead of like overblowing and trying to be a part of their world and trying to convince them, oh, like, please, please, please. I think that's how you get nice guy syndrome. I think that's where a lot of this like trauma from relationships comes from, when people overly invest, emotionally invest. I think it's well said. So make yourself as attractive as you can, and the goal is to have someone else want to be with you as opposed to convince them. And then the other thing I think that is kind of reading between the lines here is that, if someone doesn't want to be with you, then that's okay too. Don't waste your energy with someone who's like an uphill battle. There are some times where I think that that's wise, but generally speaking, I think we can fall into a trap way too easily of trying to convince someone or even turn ourselves into something else to persuade someone to be in a relationship with us. So you have your own awesome independent life, and then hopefully this person will want to be a part of that in some way. Hopefully you can join theirs in a positive way as well. So I think that's good. And I will touch your Band-Aid in just a second.
Thank you.
Why don't you read this while I touch your Band-Aid?
Thank you.
You want me to just touch the Band-Aid?
I want you to just put a little bit of like pressure.
I think the Band-Aid came off.
No, it's right here. I'm telling you.
Okay. It's coming off.
Don't. There. That's good.
Yeah, you have to hold your head this way too.
Okay, this is perfect. Okay. Part 3, communication. Diversify your communication. Don't rely on just text. Ooh, this reminds me of our 5 communications rule. Since one of my best features is my voice, I'll record a simple voice message and send it to her. Hey, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I really enjoy talking to you and I'd love to hear your voice later. Call me when you have some time to chat. I love this. This makes her want to talk to me. Throw in some pics, no dick pics. Add a meme or two. Dig deep, get to know her, don't overshare. Think of yourself as a nesting doll, share each doll sparingly, no one likes a simple puzzle. Okay, I have some nitpicks there, but communication, one of our rules very early on was like, I wanted 5 interactions a day. We were also long distance. So sometimes it would be an email with like, a little bit more thought and like a little bit longer. Sometimes it would be a quick text. Sometimes it would be a phone conversation, just checking in, but like varying the communication, I think really is very helpful. One rule I kind of like is like do the things that only you can do. So like anybody can kind of say good morning, right? But like there's like an intimate language that 2 people develop, and I think leaning into some of like the inside jokes and your inside vocabulary and stuff like that like creates intimacy through communication. I don't like the don't overshare. Like some people just kind of dump everything that they've ever thought into text, and so yeah, sure, don't overshare. And I think like revealing yourself in layers is also a good idea. But I think this is all good advice.
I think it's good too.
I was not expecting good advice, I will say.
Yeah, so I think that I mean there's a lot of good stuff in these communities, and I think sometimes what happens on the internet is we judge them based on the most clickbaity versions as opposed to a lot of what really goes on.
I mean, it's the seduction subreddit, and the username is it's a matter of attitude. Like, there's the countless 500 plus. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, so the person's doing great, but it seems like they got on your shit list when they said countless and then added a number.
yeah.
So I like this stuff too. So uh, diversify your communication. I think sounds good. Um, you know, throw in some pics, get to know her, ask her about her day. Um, and I think that this is actually really good because it is also a diversity of communication. So what I like about this person is ask about her day, her life, her family, her hopes and dreams, goals, fears, secret desires. Right? I don't think quite in that order, but or maybe in that order actually. But I think there's a
Please don't ask anybody like what's your secret desire. I think you gotta like get there.
yeah. But I think there's a variety of depth, and I actually really like the nesting doll like approach, right? So oftentimes we overshare or we undershare, but there's like a graduated approach to sharing. I'm tempted to like sit down and really think about that and make a whole lecture about, can we scientifically understand what is the appropriate level of sharing at what time?
The thumbnail is going to be an Oleg Russian doll.
I think it's great. And I don't think it's so much about no one likes a simple puzzle. I think it's that there are graduating levels of intimacy and appropriateness of sharing, and you want to kind of match someone with what they kind of do, and that there's just a gradual nature to it. Sometimes what I see a lot is that we'll have things like trauma bonding where people will share too intensely too quickly, and while they're doing it they love it. So this is crazy, but one of the things that we learned at rehab was when we're at rehab, we're like, no falling in love. Like we try to discourage people, and we'll even warn people. Like, it's really easy to fall in love at rehab because there's a lot of sharing. There's a lot of emotional like intimacy. There's a lot of like, honesty, transparency, acceptance. And when people are doing all that emotional work, they just want to fuck. Like, it's wild. I'm serious.
I believe you.
And so I think it's, even when people overshare, I think part of the reason that they overshare is that sometimes it works really well and you feel super connected and bonded to someone. Oh my God, they're so great. They're the only one for me. And then remember that, super high emotions are usually followed by super low emotions. We know this from studies on things like bipolar disorder, where you have mania and then you have a depressive crash. So oftentimes what a stable, healthy relationship looks like is like a slower pace. Okay. Part 4, dating.
Is this yours or mine?
Yours.
Part 4, dating. Don't ask a woman out. Instead, ask her to join you for something. Have any plans Saturday? Not at the moment. Well, I'm going to go do X and do Y, and I remember you mentioned you like X and Y. Care to join me? Afterwards, maybe we can Z. I can pick you up, or we can meet at T.
What are you doing later, baby? Let's go.
Now, firstly, this eliminates flakes because A, you're doing it anyway, and her attendance is not required for you to enjoy your life. And B, how she responds will let you know how to proceed. If she is non-committal, then retract your offer and move on. If she's down, you have plans. There are 3 dates that really matter. The physical date, something active that gets your blood flowing and heart racing. The formal affair, something that gives her a reason to dress up and show off. And the intimate setting, something private for just the 2 of you. How you interact in these 3 dates will tell you everything you need to know about each other.
Okay. Or where did you stop? Right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I typically do is make the first date a physical one, second one a formal one. For the third, I usually offer to cook her dinner at my place. And this leads to secky times. um, you don't have to spend a lot of money. Picnic in the park. Learn to cook. Also learn to bake. Yeah, so I think this is solid in a lot of ways. I would say, what do you think, actually, Kruti, first?
I like that this is basically live your best life, invite people along, don't be weird about it, don't fixate on it, but here's how you kind of escalate and like actually these are the things that people do that make other people like them, right? Something that is well thought through, something that like is communication heavy, something that is focused. Honestly, it sounds like this person is a fun person, so he's like out doing stuff, has interests, has like abilities. So I think it's all good. And again, I'm very surprised. I was not expecting this to be good.
So, y'all, I think that's the best data of the methodology. So, Kruti was not expecting this person to be good. Kruti was turned off by the countless 500 plus, but she's winning him over. I mean, he's winning her over, right? Like, you guys see that? It's great. So, I think there's a lot of good stuff here. First thing that I would say is I used to kind of be of this attitude too when I was like dating more, of like not, I did this with you, right? Where it's like, hey, do you like Thai food? And then we went to that Thai place. And so I think that this is good where you like don't ask someone out. But also, I think you've got to be, go ahead.
This is how you get the marathon dates, like the 9-hour dates, because it's not like, oh, we're just going to go to dinner and now dinner's over. It's like, join me for this. And, oh, this is happening. Do you want to come? Like, because our first date was like 7-8 hours. But it wasn't
I
a
thought
date.
we were
I was
just
just
hanging
joining.
out.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
So, but I think one thing is that I think it's useful to have this in your tool belt, but I also think that sometimes it's just good to ask someone out. So sometimes like there's some amount of
Kind of like you did that first date where you asked me out.
I mean, not that particular time, but my point is that, you know, sometimes it's a lot, not entirely clear, right? And so sometimes I've worked with people who this lands you in the friend zone. It's like, hey, do you want to come play D&D and let's go to an escape room? And then it's not clear whether you're on a date or not. So, I mean, that can happen too. So I think sometimes it's okay to ask someone out. I think a lot of the reasons that people don't like that is because it opens you up to rejection, which is also something that I think you should learn not to fear. So it's okay for, I mean, if you're really, you know, physically attracted and into someone, you want to ask them out on a date, I think you just, you know, put yourself out there and ask them on a date. But I think I really like the breakdown of like this concept of physical date, giving him a reason to dress up, and then you know, something intimate afterward. And I think it's funny because it's actually, we're planning a date day, and we
this
actually
is, we're
have
following basically this without...
we didn't realize it, but we actually like have all three of these steps.
Yeah.
And then I also think learning how to cook and learning how to bake is good.
I think physical date is really important. It's the best way, I think, really to assess chemistry without having to like talk through a long dinner or talk through a coffee where it feels kind of interviewy.
Yeah, that's I see that a lot where too many dates feel like interviews.
I think dates that are earlier in the day, also you have more potential for that chemistry marathon date kind of thing. All right, physical escalation. This is you.
Remember, you want to make her want to. One of the ways I do this is a pseudo push-pull. Let's say I'm out with a woman having drinks at a bar. I'll get close, do something intimate and sensual. Kiss her hand, caress her cheek.
Hold my Band-Aid.
Hold your Band-Aid. And then I'll move away. I wait until she comes to me, either closing the distance between us or reciprocating the intimacy. Then I take it to the next level, rinse and repeat. You never want to make a woman feel like she's giving you intimacy. instead make her desire that intimacy and then fulfill that desire. I think that's good. I think this is where y'all got to be super careful, because this gets scripted out way too much. So I think these are both like super high risk moves that you really have to be feeling it. Like caressing a cheek is pretty intimate. Kissing a hand is also like, it's kind of Victorian. So, but I think the concept of,
Holding the band-aid's the move.
yeah, I mean, we've been married for a decade, so I think it's a little bit different. But I think this concept of, you don't, there is, the push-pull I think is good. So I think the reason that that's really good is because you're giving people opportunities to send you information. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see people in dating make is you're operating based on a script instead of like operating based on constantly evolving diagnostic information. So when you do something like hold their hand or, touch their shoulder or something like that, then you're kind of reading that information. Okay, like how does this person respond to this? Do they touch the shoulder back? If I touch their hand, do they give it a squeeze? Do they pull it away? Like, so you're kind of like gauging, and then you gradually increase the intimacy. I think that's smart.
My favorite bullet here is like, yeah, women don't want to feel like they're giving intimacy, but like you should be eliciting desire more than eliciting like, oh, but I really want to. Can we please? Like, you don't want to do that. How much more? Okay. Sex. Is this me? Or is this you?
This is you.
All right. Part 6. Sex. There's no one way or right way to satisfy a woman. Learn to listen to her body, the way she moves, breathes, the noises she makes or doesn't. Doesn't really matter how big or small you are. It doesn't matter how good you are at oral. What matters is your ability to read, engage her pleasure, and respond accordingly. A few pro tips. Stamina isn't how long you can go without climax. Stamina is how long you can maintain the pleasure despite climax. Okay, I'll let you guys read the details on your own. Always remember the FDL rule. Okay. She comes first, she comes during, she comes last. And if she can't, it doesn't mean she won't or didn't enjoy it, and it definitely doesn't mean you should focus or obsess over it. A woman's pleasure is just as much her responsibility as it is her partner's. Some women have a hard time reaching climax. It's not you. Don't overthink it. Okay. I have some nitpicks in here. Sex isn't just oral and intercourse. Sex is every intimate, sensual moment leading up to, including, and after. It's all the things you can do, all the buttons you can press that turn each other on. Don't focus just on the physical. Okay, toys are your friend. Dirty talk is a raunchy conversation. Don't just shout obscenities. All right. Learn how to give a full body massage.
What do you?
I'm a lady.
Yeah. So we don't have to do a whole lot of personal self-disclosure here.
Yeah.
I guess personal self-disclosure as opposed to there's other kinds. So I mean, I think there's a lot of good stuff here. So what I really like about a lot of this stuff is how much room there is for information, right? So learn how to listen to someone else's body. I think there's also like women are different, right? So these are like common themes that I think we're seeing emerge that are healthy and good to understand. There isn't a right way to satisfy a woman because people respond differently to different things. Like, dude, there isn't a right way to please a man either. I think a lot of this stuff applies to men as well. So a couple of other like small factual things. So the first is that the majority of nerves and feeling. So light touch receptors, there are two kinds of touch receptors. there's light touch receptors, and then there's like more proprioceptive deep touch receptors. So light touch receptors are very, very heavy on the outside of the vagina and for the first 1 to 3 inches on the inside of the vagina. And then our pressure receptors and proprioceptive receptors are more common deeper into the vaginal canal. A couple of other things that people don't realize is like the cervix also has a lot of receptors, but usually stimulating the cervix is like oftentimes an unpleasant feeling for women. So I think the biggest one of the biggest disservices that we do in the medical profession is telling women that IUD insertion is going to be like not awful. I think I think that's like, so a couple of things to think about. One is that oftentimes this is why, many men who have average penis size or less than average penis size actually have very sexually fulfilling relationships. I think the penis size thing is like more important to dudes than it is to girls, although that's absolutely, that's absolutely like fair that for some women it's really important to them, but there's a lot of variability. I think that there's also a lot of other things that I like about this, which is that they really emphasize and focus on just all the other dimensions besides the actual intercourse or sexual act. So ramping up to it, things like massage, like talking, toys, foreplay. If y'all watch the gooning video, I think that's a really good example of like why foreplay is important, right? Because there's that, anyway, you guys can watch it, but there's this whole concept of like calculus of sexual pleasure. And then the other thing that isn't said here, but I think it's kind of implied, is this is not what you see in pornography. So I think one thing that we like need to kind of say is that pornography is acting. So just like any other movie, it's not real. Right? So like, I mean, we've seen Star Wars, which is a great movie, and then we've seen Star Wars Kid, which is epic in its own way, fair enough, but is like not the same, right? We don't want to be Star Wars Kid. And so yeah, I think there's a lot of good.
I thought you were going to say we've seen Star Wars and then we've seen like the porn version of Star Wars.
Yeah. And then I saw that one of the people from these I think I think Jay Mystery is in chat, so welcome, Jay Mystery. Thanks for offering to clarify. And I think we reviewed their post earlier, and I think there was a lot of good stuff in it. So thank you for sharing. Okay, shall we move on to the last one? And then we can talk about.
My only note on like sex is like it's supposed to be fun, and it's like about the connection. It's not like, don't be so goal oriented. Like, communicate, have fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, or do
Yeah,
you
go
really
for it.
want to go through all this?
No, I think it's.
Okay, part 7, transitioning into
almost
a
done.
LTR. Don't focus on the goal. Sure, we all want the white picket fence scenario. Okay. When you're ready, really ready to commit to someone, go out for a drink and have a mature conversation about how you feel, why, and where you want the relationship to go. And then finally, don't assume that just because you've been on 6 dates and had sex 4 times that you're in a relationship.
Okay. What do you think?
Sure.
Yeah, I think this is really great too.
I think my favorite part of this is don't be the passenger in the car yelling, "Are we there yet?" I
I think you do have to know kind of where it's heading and that both people are agreed on where it's going, but then you don't need to reanalyze it every 5 seconds on, you know, if you know, you're still, are we, I don't know if we're going to be able to get engaged if this and this is happening. Like, I wouldn't be so goal oriented either.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff here. That, like, you don't have to be, are we there yet? I've seen a lot of relationships fall apart because of that pressure, because everyone's operating, or not everyone, one person in the relationship is operating based on this idea of where it should be.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of sitting down and having a mature conversation is like super healthy. And I think that relationships evolve in their own time and in their own space, and that you also can't take things for granted. And that, like, it's like an ongoing journey. And then I think the further into a relationship you get, I think it's like pretty good in some ways, because then you're kind of exploring new territory together. So Kruti and I have been married now for 13 years. and so, I don't think either of us have been married to someone for 13 years before. So this is like new territory for both of us. So I think it's like, remember that a relationship is not about, I think part of what I think is unhealthy is when I see a lot of dating advice on the internet. It's like, women are this way, men are this way. This is how to get what you want. This is, it's like, it really is a co-op. It's co-op, a real relationship. Now, if you're just trying to seduce someone and get laid, that's maybe a different story. But even that's a relationship of a sort, right? It's actually, it is a relationship. It's just a relationship that's very short term, where presumably people are looking for the same thing, which is a liaison for a particular day. And so I think it's like something that should be explored together, and that y'all are on the same team. And it's not about one person's dream or another person's dream. It's about building something together that chances are y'all have not experienced before. Because even if you've had a relationship with someone else, this is a whole different person.
I think the best relationships are very multidimensional. Like, you're friends and you're also lovers, or you're in this really serious relationship, but you're also really lighthearted, or, like, you guys maybe play a sport together or whatever it is, but like, so you have like your competitive athletic relationship, and then you also have your romantic relationship. So usually the problems I see are almost like in the absence of having a multidimensional relationship, you like fill that connection void with all this drama. What's funny?
Just reading chat.
They're so funny.
They're so great. It's like, I think the real tragedy of streaming like this is that I'm so distracted with what I'm saying and what I'm reading that we miss out on chat.
I know.
But someone is saying Balls Deep sounds like an Indian name, but it's actually Dr. K's nickname. And that's true. Balls Deep, hello. This is my two sons, Sandeep and Balls Deep. It's good. I also, there are a lot of great comments, like Kruti saying there's different kinds of sex. I think that's true, right? So there's like love making, there's fucking, there's maintenance sex.
I was talking about different kinds of relationships.
Oh, I guess I AKA'd it in my head. And then, as Crow said, there's casual sex. There's also ranked competitive sex, which is absolutely true. There's like, and I think that there's funny sex, like, there's all kinds of stuff.
Okay, well.
All random, all men sex. Yeah. That's called an orgy.
What do you think about casual sex? Asks Twarit Wykar.
So we have a deep dive into lust. That's going to be our second long membership lecture. So I think we're going to talk about it there. But I think casual sex can mean a lot of different things. And what I think about it depends on what it's associated with. So I think sometimes people can have a simple sexual relationship, and that can be healthy. But I think oftentimes what's more common is that casual sex. So here's the thing to understand. Sex activates like literally like every part of the brain. Sex involves a dozen hormones and neurotransmitters at a minimum. Involves a lot of different organ systems and things like that, has dual activation of the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is what gets people primed for sex, and then sympathetic nervous system is what results in the sex act. So this guy's tip of learn how to give a full body massage is really good because full body massage induces relaxation, which can oftentimes lead to priming of sexual activity. So I think the key thing to remember about casual sex is that it activates just about everything. And since we're activating just about everything, it can involve a lot of different dimensions of a human being that we don't think of when we think of casual sex. So people will use casual sex as a way to avoid feeling emotions. So I've worked with people who will have once, and this is very frustrating for everyone involved, or almost everyone, but if I'm feeling emotionally connected to someone, to avoid that connection with that person, I'll go and have casual sex with someone else. Right? Because it kind of like, oh, like this is getting too close. I need to avoid this intimacy. Unfortunately, sometimes this happens while you're in a relationship with that person and you start to catch feelings and you don't want to catch feelings, so you go and fuck someone else. So like there's all kinds of stuff. Sex can be used as a proxy for emotional regulation. It can be used as a proxy for self-esteem, right? So, and if you look at a lot of this dating pickup artist culture, people will use sex as a substitute for self-respect. They'll use a sex as a substitute for external respect. They'll use sex as a source of esteem, as a source of status. Oh, I've slept with this many women. This makes me better than you. So if we look at what happens with sex, it's like there's so many parts of the brain that are involved. And, I think if you're using casual sex as a form of esteem building, that can work, but I think you're actually doing yourself a disservice because you don't have to be having a whole lot of casual sex to have self-esteem. Right? I would say just build it in a well-rounded way and then have sex be what sex is for, which is some amount of pleasure, some amount of self-esteem, sure. Some amount of intimacy, some amount of relationship building, some amount of like becoming family, right? That's what we think of in marriage.
And fun.
And fun. And so I think oftentimes the challenge is what is casual sex? If it's just a simple transient physical connection, that can be fine. Even if you use it as some degree of emotional regulation, that can be fine too. And that's where when we get to when is something a problem? Well, something becomes a problem when it becomes your sole option. So what's the difference between alcohol addiction and having a couple drinks after a long week? Well, when having a couple drinks after a long week is your option to decompress, is not one of many options, then it becomes a problem. So casual sex, I don't think is good or bad. It's about what it is doing for you. And there are some things that it can do for you that I think you can have casual sex in a relationship. Right?
That's important.
Like sometimes it's like, it doesn't have to be lovemaking. It doesn't have to be ranked competitive sex. Sometimes it doesn't have to be some funny kind of, sometimes it's like, hey, like, what are you doing today? Want to have sex? Okay. And then you can have more intimacy and stuff later. Like, I never answered, but I will in a minute. I'll wait for her to go.
Go where?
Go rest your head.
Oh, you're going to talk about why men cheat without me here? No.
I think we've talked about this before.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you know.
Okay.
I won't go into too many details, but it's not to keep things hidden from you. It's just I need to be here.
Do you have
Sound good?
any? Is that the last one? Or
Yeah.
yeah? Any questions? How to have sex. Your guide to the magic, I think, is overdue, Alok. What happened to your head? So, if I get super stressed out, I actually lose hair, and I have a little bit of alopecia. And today I went to the doctor for my just well checkup, and we talked about it, and he was like, I can give you a steroid injection for that, and we can see if that helps. And I was like, that sounds good. And he was like, here we go. I was like, oh, okay, we're doing it right now. So I got a shot in my head, and it hurts.
Yeah,
I also got a flu shot, which is fine, but like in the head.
okay.
All right.
So thank you all very much. We'll talk a quick bit about men and infidelity, but you can go rest, and I think
I
we're
can
done.
go rest my head.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good to see you. Good to hang out. Thanks for keeping it spicy. All right. Bye.
Okay. And then I'm gonna adjust.
Para adjust gonna.
Adjust.
Adjust.
Not go. So over here. I gotta like swap mics and stuff, chat.
Love you.
Love you too. This chair.
This on. Okay. So, give me a second. You'll have questions? But in an accent, lol. So I'm doing well. Yeah, so I think so, you know, one of the things I'm actually grateful for is that as a psychiatrist I've worked with a lot of people who have experienced infidelity in their relationships. And what I mean by that is either they have been unfaithful and or their partners have been unfaithful. I've seen a lot of both. And so it's really useful to see, you know, like what the experience is like from both sides. And I think a lot of times when we talk about infidelity, I think a lot of times people just don't have a sufficient sample size to make generalizations. And I probably don't either, because I'm sure it's, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, there's research and stuff into infidelity. But I think for men, I think there are a couple of different things at play. So the first is that a lot of times good men will cheat, and people will be very, very surprised that, oh, like, I can't believe this person had an affair. They seem like such a good dude. And I think that's actually part of the problem. So the first thing is that I would want to say 50+% of relationships that I've seen that have an unfaithful man start out with something charitable. So usually what happens is that there is a good man, right? And you're a good man and you're married. And then what happens is you see, we're assuming a heteronormative perspective here. So you see like a woman who's in some kind of distress. And so a lot of your social conditioning about like, oh, you know, we should help this person, we should take care of this person. Like a lot of it starts actually with charity. That's like the first step. And then what happens is as you start to be charitable and as you start to be kind, you start to form some kind of emotional bond. Then what usually happens is since you view yourself as a good man, you will then come up with a rationalization. So you'll make the act not bad in your mind in some way. So you'll say like, oh, this is okay because this, and I'm doing it, like there's some kind of weird rationalization or intellectual defense that comes in that makes it like not bad, justifies it. That's very common, not just for men. There's some kind of justification. Another reason I think that it leads, another thing that causes men to cheat is that they're trying to escape some aspect of their current relationship. And this is important to kind of dig into a little bit. So see, as men, we're taught that we're supposed to advance in some ways in life. And a lot of times our advancement, even if you look at all this like pickup artist stuff we talked about today, right? So people will say, work on yourself, learn how to dress, start working out, learn how to bake, learn how to do this, learn how to do this. So a lot of our positivity and a lot of our growth as men comes from some kind of relationship to relationships. So I need to be sexier, I need to be taller, I need to be more successful. Why? So I can get a relationship. And then what tends to happen a lot with dudes is once we enter into a relationship, our primary driver for growing actually goes away. And so then what happens is we see a lot of stagnation of personal growth in men in relationships. And we even saw versions of this today where people will say, oh, I don't love you anymore. And the dude will interpret that as like, oh, you want to fuck other people. And that could be true, but I think a lot of it is just that like we stop growing. And a lot of men start getting very, very stagnant in relationships, especially when they become long-term. And then this affair or the infidelity becomes an opportunity for growth. It becomes an escape from the stagnancy of my life, right? So for 7 or 8 years, and I'll see this a lot like with like midlife crises, where we've been in this relationship for a while, we had kids, then it was like we got to survive with the kids, everything is falling apart, I don't have time to do anything else. And then you kind of become complacent, you start to stagnate, and then a new relationship offers you another opportunity for growth. I oftentimes see that when men have relationships that are extramarital, the other person oftentimes encourages them in a way that their current partner doesn't, right? So they'll encourage them to think big and dream big and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's really challenging because I think part of the reason they can do that is because your affair partner doesn't have to deal, like it's easy for an affair partner to encourage you to think big when they're not the ones that have to pay the price for your big thinking. Now, that may sound a little bit weird, but let me explain, right? So if I want to do something big, let's say I say like, okay, I want to write a book. And so when I go and I talk to Kruti and I say, I want to write a book, she can encourage me to write the book, but who pays the price for my growth? She does, right? So if I want to write a book, that means nights and weekends, which means she has to watch the kids. So oftentimes affair partners have a very, very like, kind of like unfair advantage where they can encourage growth on the part of the man without paying anything for it. Whereas usually it's our partner at home who has to actually pay the price for us to grow in some way. So I see a lot of I see it starting with charity. I see a lot of intellectualization, defense mechanisms. I see a lot of like stagnation and fundamental unhappiness on the part of a man in a relationship. And then they go outside of the relationship to find what is missing in their current relationship. And I think the real tragedy of that is that what's missing in your current relationship can usually be made in your current relationship if you put in the right amount of effort. Now, of course, there's a huge caveat there because, like a lot of people will say like, oh, I tried to do this in my relationship and my partner doesn't care. That's very common too. I think it's sometimes, it's hard it's hard. I'm not saying it's always possible. And so I think like these are the really solid reasons. By solid, I don't mean that they're good. I mean, like these are the most common like reasons that I see where a lot of men who you would not expect to cheat end up cheating. Some amount of escape, some amount of stagnation. That's usually what they're escaping from. It's not always just like excitement. I do think frequently, like a lot of dudes will say, oh, my girlfriend left me for a hotter guy, someone who was taller, had 6-pack abs, like whatever. But I think I see that more commonly with men than women. So I think women leave relationships for a physically attractive partner less often than men leave relationships for a less attractive partner. So I think this once again is projection, right? So everyone's like, oh, like unless you stay ripped, like your wife is going to leave you. Like that's going to, unless you stay physically attractive, your wife is going to leave you. Like I think that's projection. I think men are more likely to leave their partners if they become physically less attractive. There's some kind of scary statistics around that too. So the likelihood of divorce is during cancer is actually lopsided. So men are much more likely to divorce their wives after cancer has entered, if the wife has cancer, than the other way around. Now that also, I think you've got to be careful about the statistic because it's correlation. We don't really understand what's going on or why it's going on or things like that. There could be good reasons for that. We don't know, but there are discrepancies that way. One of the other and it may not just be physical attractiveness. So arguments against that are also that women with ADHD. So, when there's ADHD in a heterosexual relationship, it is much more likely to result in divorce when it's the woman who has ADHD. But that probably has to do with other things, like a lot of the womanly duties that we expect, like organizing birthday parties, taking care of the kitchen, making sure your kids' lunches are packed on time. Those are like very difficult if you have ADHD. So it's kind of all over the place, but and sometimes it is just physical attractiveness. I think it's like sometimes if you look at why human beings do bad things, now we're talking in general, usually what human beings require to do bad things is safety from getting caught and opportunity, right? So you have to be able to get it and you have to be able to get away with it. So if you look at at people, if you ask someone, would you steal from your employer? What would it take for you to steal from your employer? And they're like, am I going to get caught? And can I do it successfully? So that can also be there too. But I think, a lot of dudes, it's super scary. So I think one of the scariest things is that you can be in a stable relationship. You can think you're a good guy. And for a lot of women, you can be married to a good guy. And it turns out that being married to a good guy could be one of the strongest risk factors for infidelity. Because it's that good guy who is trying to help this woman out, being very kind, being very nice. They bond emotionally. There's some amount of emotional intimacy. And that emotional intimacy can sometimes lead to a sexual relationship, which is very common. And then the dude justifies it in his head because he's like, hey, I'm helping her out. Oh, her life is so hard. And there's a lot of unfair advantages that woman will have, which is that they don't have to be married to your fucking ass, which is why they can talk the way that they do, behave the way that they do. They don't have to clean up your laundry. They don't have to scrub the skid marks out of your tidy whities. They're not doing all that stuff, right? They're doing, so the freedom that they have to engage with you makes you feel so much lighter, so much cleaner, so much better, right? And you've got no skid marks on your tidy whities because you've got a wife at home who does a lot of good shit for you. And someone's saying, what the hell, that's my ex. And that's why I'm sharing it this way, because that's unfortunately very common. So, and just as to be expected from chat, y'all get super hung up on the tidy whities and the skid marks. I prefer a women. It's all the comments are about skid marks and tidy whities. So I think what can be done about it is a lot. So I think the first important thing is introspection. That's the most important thing to really, if you're a dude, to recognize the way that you feel. If you're stagnating, to try to talk to your partner about it. And this isn't just, because I think the scenario I described can apply to women as well. It can apply to homosexual couples. And at the same time, why don't I apply it to everyone? Because I think it is important to acknowledge that heterosexual people have different experiences than homosexual people. I think men have different experiences from women. And while a lot of these can cross over, it's not clear to me that it is the same. Right? So we want to be super careful about assuming that men's experiences of infidelity and women's experiences of infidelity are the same. So probably scientifically what the right answer is that there's a Venn diagram between the two and there's a fair amount of overlap. And I think that, it was interesting to hear Kruti's answer about infidelity in women, because I thought I heard, I was kind of walking in and out, but I thought I heard her say, there was a problem in the relationship. Whereas like sometimes I think you've got to be careful, because sometimes people will say, okay, there's a problem in the relationship, therefore I'm going to cheat, as opposed to a problem in the person, which is really interesting. And I tend to hear, I rarely hear infidelity in men being attributed to a problem in the relationship. I much more commonly hear infidelity in women being attributed to a problem in the relationship. And I'm not trying to be like, I'm not saying that that's statistically valid. It's maybe that's my bias for what I pick up on. Very possible. But I think that we do approach these things differently based on gender and how genders view relationships and things like that. So I think that's why a lot of men cheat. I don't think it's as simple as like, oh, there's some, more attractive person who's walking by. I think if you're from the toxic manosphere, then sure. Right? Like that can be absolutely valid. But I think oftentimes you can see a lot by how people project their thoughts. Yeah, so, someone saying, Crystal is saying, I knew someone that kept cheating and it took her years to realize she was the problem. That's very common. What the hell is maintenance sex? What a great question. So we'll leave this as our last question for the day. There's a question about deadlock. Maybe I'll answer that one too. So I would call maintenance sex basically like sometimes people want to masturbate, right? And so masturbation is about like gratifying your own sexual needs without attaching any of this love or passion or intimacy to it. It's just we have certain sexual needs that need to be satisfied. And thankfully, sometimes when you're in a sexual relationship, you can get someone to help you out with that. So it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be drawn out. It's kind of like, the intercourse equivalent of tugging one out. Do I have a video about limerence? I don't remember. I think we've talked about it some before. It's something we've explored. What about poly relationships? So poly relationships are really interesting for so many ways, in so many ways. So the first is that there's a great review article I saw on poly relationships that showed, maybe I can find it. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up. Damn it. Let me see if I can find it up. Pull it up. I can't find it. Maybe this is it. So let me see. So there's a study that I saw that was a review article. I just have literally hundreds or thousands of papers sitting around, so it's just hard to find things. Let me see. Hold on a second. Oh, here we go. Maybe. So I think there's an interesting review about poly relationships that shows that people in poly relationships tend to be pretty happy. I think the challenge with a lot of the data on poly relationships is that they look at poly relationships. What they don't look at is the relationships that have fallen apart that used to be polyamorous, or that one partner really was pushing for an open relationship. So this is a survivorship bias that is huge, in my opinion, in the polyamory research, right? So I don't know if y'all remember, y'all have seen that thing about the World War II plane. So this is survivorship bias. So the story here is that during World War II, what would happen is planes would come back and they would look at where there were bullet holes. So these are all the places that were bullet holes for planes. And then what would happen is people were saying, okay, if this is where all the bullet holes are, we have to reinforce these areas of the plane, which is actually the worst thing to do. Because if you get shot here, 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 or here, your plane never makes it back. This is called survivorship bias. So if we look at data, we've got to be super careful about studying poly relationships, because the ones that we study are like, the inclusion criteria is we talk to 500 people who are in polyamorous relationships. What about all the people who tried a poly relationship and it didn't work? I haven't seen that degree of corrective survivorship bias in the poly research. And it's not like insidious or anything. That's just the progression of things in medicine, is that we start by looking at it, right? And then over time, we can incorporate more studies and then we'll get a more complete picture. So for the people for whom they work, they seem to work well. I think the challenge is that for a lot of people, they don't work. So I would say that the vast majority of poly relationships that I've seen as a psychiatrist don't work out well. And that's because they fall apart. And I think the really simple reason for that is, so making a relationship work when you have two sets of emotional needs and you have to have a compromise between two parties, that's challenging enough. The more people that you add to the compromising situation, the muddier and the more difficult a compromise becomes. So we see this, for example, with like legislation, right? So if you and I are making rules for our house, it's pretty easy to do. But if we have rules where 13 different stakeholders all have their thing that they're looking for, it increases the difficulty of success. That being said, I think the reason we're seeing more poly relationships is because I think the dyadic relationship is not as vital as it used to be. So we used to require some degree of like marriage, right? Because you had the woman who would take care of things at home and you have the man who would go out and work in the fields. And now what we're starting to see is more independence on both sides. We have house husbands, we have men who are learning how to bake, right? So this pickup artist person who is like, hey, I've slept with 200 women, I'm engaged now. Here's what I learned: to learn how to bake, learn how to go down on a woman. And then you have other people in the manosphere who are like, going down on a woman is the gayest thing that you can do because it's submissive. And it's like, what? So there's, I think relationships are evolving and human beings are evolving and human beings are learning to be more independent. So you don't need the dyad in the way that you used to. You can live a relatively normal and happy life by yourself. Some people can. So what that opens the door to are other kinds of organizations of relationships. And so sometimes those are polyamorous. And I've absolutely seen relationships that are successful in polyamorous. And I think that they're able to provide something that is actually like in some ways, it really is superior to a dyadic relationship. Because now what you have is like if one person is having a bad day, like let's say one partner gets cancer and you're in a throuple. So if one partner has cancer and you're in a throuple, the other partner doesn't get into caregiver burnout because now you have two people taking care of this person. And when you have one partner with cancer and you have two people who are caregivers, that caregivers can bond over the difficulty of being a caregiver. So we know that, for example, with like cancer, like caregivers, we hold like different kinds of peer support groups for people who are supporting other people with cancer. And that's very helpful from like an emotional bonding standpoint, from a support bonding standpoint. And then there's like really simple stuff that I've seen. So when someone is going through chemotherapy, their libido is 0. And so now what happens is you've got one partner whose libido is 0 and one partner whose libido is not 0, one partner who may even use sexual relationships or sexual activity as a way of emotional regulation, just like all human beings do. And thankfully, there's a third partner in the relationship that we can still continue to gratify our sexual needs, even though one person has no libido. So I've seen successful cases of that, but I would say that those are in the minority. And I think the simple reason they're in the minority is because I think your relationship EQ needs to be way higher to succeed in a poly relationship. I think it's actually just harder because now you have two sets of feelings to consider or more. And then we also have historical cases of, polygamy, stuff like that, right? Like we even still, not even historical. I mean, some cultures and religions, multiple wives and things like that, like in Islam I think is like pretty accepted in some parts of the world. I'm not trying to offend anyone. If I'm wrong there, please let me know. But, I have Muslim family members who have had multiple wives. So like I've seen it in my day and age and seems to work out okay for them. So they also have some interesting ground rules, which I think are probably pretty good. I'm not advocating for that by any means, but it still exists in the world today. So I think it's doable, but I think it's hard. Polyamorous means more resilient. I think it can be, right? So you've just got 3 humans that are a part of the relationship, which means you have 3 times the need. And you have, so if you look at, one person, you have 1x the needs and 1x the resources. 2 people, 2x the needs, 2x the resources. 3 people, 3x the needs and 3x the resources. So I think it's just, there's some economy of scale there. It makes things complicated in some ways. I think there are a lot of challenges. So sometimes like when children get evolved because poly relationships can rupture too. And that makes things very complicated. Yeah, so Kyle is saying, I think a lot of people mistakenly view poly relationships as centering around one person. So like a guy with 2 girlfriends because he wants to sleep with 2 girls. Yeah, that's, in my experience, the successful ones are not like that. There's like a very, like shared emotional and like resource experience. It's like Monday I'm going to cook, Tuesday you're going to cook, Wednesday you're going to cook, right? Like we like rotate through and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. So, who's my favorite Deadlock character? So I play 3 characters and I suck with all of them. I play Dynamo. The reason that I play Dynamo is because you can get a refresher shard and you can double black hole and you can win a game. Because I can't aim. So anything that involves shooting is hard for me, or shooting a moving target. Second character I play is McGinnis, because McGinnis seems to be really good at split pushing. I'm sure McGinnis is also not good at split pushing and probably should be in fights, but I'll buy a big magazine and I'll just take towers while my team's dicking around and I can put pressure on the map and it's a stationary target. So it's really good at taking objectives, and that's the build that I use. I don't know if that's actually good or not. The third character is that whatever that ice dude is, and there's like a heal kind of build because I like to play support characters. But healing and being a support character in Deadlock seems very hard. So we'll see. You finished Black Myth yet? No, I'm like 30 minutes in. I'm still trying to finish Elden Ring. The problem with Elden Ring is now my kids get upset with me when I play without them. They're like, you played Elden Ring without us? And it's great. Like they're really fun to play with. They'll like tell me to do things. They're like, Dad, don't get hit so much. Okay, Dad, this is what you need to do. Like one of my kids will jump in front of the TV and she'll be like, Dad, this is what you need to do. That guy does the swinging attack and then you need to not get hit by it. And I'm like, got it. It's great. So now, like, I don't want to play without them. And it's weird. So, yeah, it's fantastic. Anyway, y'all have a good weekend. Thank y'all very much for coming today. I hope today was helpful. Thank you, Jay, for coming up in chat and hanging around. I sincerely hope that our take on your post, which we're grateful for you for making, wasn't harsh or judgmental. And I'm really grateful to everyone who posted this stuff, right? Because we couldn't do this without y'all. And like I said, I think a lot of it is good. And I think some of the worst stuff is like the earlier stuff. And a lot of the evolutions of what's happening in the pickup artist community, I think are pretty healthy and positive. So take care, y'all. We'll see y'all maybe Monday, maybe Wednesday. I forget what we're doing next. But take care, and we'll continue to have uploads on the YouTube side. If y'all always want more, check out guides and stuff like that. I think people were asking a lot of questions about. So a lot of this stuff, if y'all are like, okay, if I'm one of these dudes and I'm one of these, I'm into the red pill pickup artist community, what should I do? I'd say Trauma Guide is a great place to start because, like I said, I think a lot of this stuff is born from trauma. 100% of people that I've worked with, clinically and in a coaching capacity, 100% of them I do trauma work with. And that could be selection bias, but I think it's like, remember that hurt people hurt people. So if y'all really want to learn more, if you want to learn more about how to develop confidence, how to develop a sense of identity, I'll say like introspection is important. How do you avoid having an affair? You have to know yourself. And a lot of that stuff is actually laid out in the Trauma Guide. So check that out if y'all want more information, and we'll see y'all